you everybody for being here. This is going to be a great hour.
Hour.
Very pleased to introduce our spotlight speaker today, John Radway, whom most of you know with Legacy Dynamics. And I thought he was going to have a presentation, so I did not prepare many questions. But I have no doubt that
if you got a couple, go for it.
If I just give you the floor, you can just share with us what made you, what brought you here today, and just take it away.
Okay, that'll be a 60-item answer to that. I'm going to stand up because I don't think well sitting down. I'm going to ask two questions, but I don't want you to answer it. I want you all to stand up. This is interactive. Turn to the person next to you or near you and say, "Why are you here?"
Why are you here?
Second question. What's your purpose in life? Okay, but don't answer it now. We're going to come back to that at the end. Now I got them started. I can't. Okay, everybody sit down. Okay, I think the best way to share all of this is to go through my life experiences that have led me to Legacy Dynamics, and it's strongly a faith-based coaching and mentoring services that I do. I talked about why. What is our why in life? And this applies to, we're entrepreneurs, there's a lot of startups. First of all, I know 99% of you in this room, and I know you're here because you're here to care about other people, and you're here for that reason. It's not about you. One of the books that I've read a couple of times, and I know a couple of people have read it, I know one person told me she's going to read it, and that's called Purpose Driven Life by Rick Warren. And I can summarize that book up into about one sentence. Life, it's not about you. We know we're in a society today that's approaching self-actualization, and it's at that level, and we're all thinking it's about me. Do I do that? Absolutely. Did I grow up doing that? Yes. I'm an only child. And as long as I get my own way, I'm in pretty good mood, right, Karen? and so there's a tendency to do that, but as we mature and as life changes, our thought process changes. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with what's called the Wheel of Life, something I grew into with Leadership Resources, and there are 6 areas in the Wheel of Life. I have, at 83, I got to write these things down. And I put these in my priority order: spiritual and ethical, home and family, financial and career, physical and health, mental and education, being lifelong learners. That's what life's all about. And social and cultural, and interaction. So it was through that and I'll come to, in the latter part of what I'm going to share, I'll come to my experiences at Leadership Resources. But they were one of those, what I call legacy moments. We've all had experiences where we say, man, that was coincidence. That was unusual that happened that way. Well, and I'll share that with this group, and as long as you're comfortable. I call them God moments. And I see a lot of yes nodded, thank you. But for the purpose of what we're going to talk about for the next 20, 25 minutes, I'm going to call them legacy moments, because they do come into where we are in life right now and the life and the legacy that we're living. Okay, I was born in 1939. Look it up in the history books. Before World War II. My first legacy moment happened in 1945. My dad walked out on us. My mother and my grandmother and I. My dad and my grandfather had a Wurlitzer Seaman jukebox business. Southern Wisconsin. I grew up in Beloit, Wisconsin, right on the Illinois line. All around there, every night is Friday night fish fry. Every crossroads had a bar. Jody's going, yeah. Everyone had a bar. Everyone had a grocery. My dad's were, anyway, long story short, he spent too much time changing records at this one lady's restaurant and bar. Now, I did get to spend time with my dad growing up. He lived near Lake Geneva, Wisconsin, and I'd spend summers there. But it was not a very close relationship. Over time, my mother met a police captain, and he was a police captain. So sometimes he loved us in his way, but he was not a huggy guy. Okay, so I didn't have that. My real relationship was with my other father, and I grew with that. 1951 comes along. School was okay. I was not a good student early on in life. I became a late lifelong learner. English teacher said, you got to go write a book report on somebody famous in Wisconsin. Okay. So I go to the library, and there's this book on a guy named Frank Lloyd Wright, Legacy Moment Number 2. I'd done well in art. I did pretty well in math and sciences, but when it came to English and that. So I wrote that book report, and it just stayed with me. I just started finding his other books, finding other things, reading and writing, and being involved with that. 1954 comes along. I needed to work. My mother was a telephone operator. She worked during the Depression. She was the only income coming into our family. No different than COVID. She was an essential worker during the Depression. We had to keep the phones running. 1954 comes along. I was in school, but I had 2 paper routes, and morning and evening paper routes, so I had to keep working, so I didn't do much with sports. Went through confirmation and all the things you do as a kid, and then our pastor said, have you ever thought about being a minister? I said, nope. I like to draw. Well, my mother and Claude and said, it'd be good for you to just get out of the house and be away from 2 women and be on your own and grow up. So I went to Bethany Lutheran High School in Mankato, Minnesota in 56. And it was a total cultural shift. And so that was a legacy moment. It was a whole different environment and culture, and I grew. Now, I didn't go 54, 55. I didn't go 55, 56. I went back to Beloit High School and went 1 year to work so I could go back my senior year. So in my senior year, I go back to Bethany, did that, graduate. I knew I could draw. I'd taken drafting in high school. My next door neighbor, Legacy, said he was a sales manager for a company called Warner Brake. And he said, we need draftsmen. Why don't you come work for us? Okay. Graduated on a Friday, went to work on a Monday, had a job. That was part of a plan that I didn't have, but it was there for me. By the way, I was the first member of my family to graduate from high school. Jim talked about that. By the way, as I was preparing for today, I looked down there and go, parallels. And I said this to Brooke earlier, we both worked at Sperry Univac in different locations back at one point in life. So then I worked there for about a year, and the economy slowed down, and there was another company in town that was called Beloit Iron Works. They made machines that made paper. And so I was an electromechanical draftsman for them, was kind of in charge of draft. I always ended up being in charge of things, and I never quite understood why. and then my one roommate from Bethany said, I'm going to be transferring from IIT to Mankato State College, winter quarter. Why don't you go to school with me there? I said, I can't afford to go to college. No, figure it out. So I said, all right, I'll go 1 quarter. They were on a 3-quarter, fall, winter, spring quarter, and they had summer. And I said, all right, well, I'll go. And again, I believe that was a legacy moment that gave me that inspiration to go there. So you go there and you have to go through an orientation, because I had average high school grades and had to kind of go into general college to start taking classes. And they had an orientation program, and it started with A's in the back and Z's in the front. R. Radway, S. Swenson. And there was this girl that I knew at Bethany, and she sat right in front of me. 61 years later, she's still with me. So that was in December of 59. We were married 10 months later in November of 60, and the rest is history. She wanted to get back to Minnesota. I wanted to get out of Beloit. Rockford, Illinois and Beloit, Wisconsin are 2 of the highest crime rate cities per capita in the country. And so it was a unique culture, and I'll just leave it at that. And so there was an opening at Sperry Univac. They had advertised in Beloit because there was a lot of industry in St. Paul, and I interviewed for that, and I went up to there, got the job in electromechanical drafting. Now, for you very young people, circuitry actually used to be drawn out on a piece of paper with black tape and little circles, and then they'd photograph that, and then they'd shrink it down. I started doing the cabinets. I worked on computers and computer cabinets that went on submarines for launching Nike Zeus missiles. It was a federal. We were in a room. I think there was 150 of us draftsmen there. Now it'd take 2 guys on a CAD machine probably to do accomplish the same thing. And so we went. I went that for a while, and I really didn't enjoy that. And Karen's uncle Bill, who I got to be close with, had a friend from church. He said, "Well, I work for Ellerby Architects." And I'd taken some night classes at Rockford College on architecture. That was still that thread that matches the pants and the socks and the tie that stays with me my whole life. I still love designing. And so I got a job with Ellerby in 1963. And was fortunate enough to not just have to draw stair details and shelves details and door details. I started working on some design projects. Had the opportunity to work on all 3 Shrine hospitals, University of Arizona. They were healthcare architects. If any of you have been to Sun City, Arizona, the Robert O. Boswell Hospital with the circular nursing units, I had a chance to work on that. So I had some really fun, unique projects that I got to work on, primarily on development design. I wasn't an architect, I wasn't registered. I'd taken 2 of the AIA tests. And so I back up a second. We were married on November 12th, 1960. On September 12th, 10 months later, we waited to have children, a month. Our daughter Rebecca was born. That was a legacy moment. 63, when I started at Ellerby, our daughter Brenda was born. And so we worked there, and then I was going to the university at the same time working on my degree. I had to start in general college, and then because at that time you could get registered as an architect without a full degree if you had a certain level of experience, and you could pass the AIA exams. And I'd gone through a couple of those. 1966 comes along, and our son Thayer is born, and I'm still working at Ellerby, going to school full time. And then, so in 1966, Thayer is born. He was 4 weeks old. We were Saturday morning. I had gotten up these are all God moments, if you don't mind. I was going to go to a lab. I got up, we'd had 10 inches of snow that night before. This is like the first week of January. I shoveled the driveway out, backed the car out, put it in the garage, because I thought if I go in, I'd take a run out from there and hit the highway. And we got there up, he was lethargic, and he stopped breathing. And I grabbed him, ran outside, beat him on the back. He started breathing again. Today, I think they call it SIDS, okay? That's sudden infant death syndrome. But we happened to be, he'd be away. Karen called our resident at, he was born through the neo-infant program at the university, because I was a student at the University of Minnesota. We got him there, went through every red light we could think of, hoping a cop would stop us and then guide us in. We weren't sure. They took him in a room. To this day, we don't know how many times he stopped breathing. All we know, and I won't go into a lot of it, they followed him neurologically for 5 years because of lack of oxygen. So in 1966, 67, I'm talking to one of the design draftsmen at Ellerby, and draftsmen didn't make very much money back then. I think I made $125 a week. Now that's a different scale today, but it still wasn't a lot. I worked part-time nights at a Sears store. He said, "Have you ever thought about teaching?" I said, "I don't have a teacher's degree." "Well, I have a friend who's in Jackson, Minnesota, Southwest. They're looking for an architectural drafting instructor." I said, "Well, you know, always having been a people person and wanting to learn," I said, "Well, I'll apply for that." And that Stout College in Menominee trained industrial arts and that. So I went, and I was fortunate enough to get the job. Now, a quick 2-minute humorous piece to this is, I've just finished working, I can say, at the University of Arizona and UC Medical School, and the director of the school, Del Schwieger, says, "Well, here's some of the projects we're going to start. The first one we want you to teach is how to draw up a hog finishing barn." Now, first of all, nothing wrong with that. I just talked to somebody earlier this week who does some marketing for a company that's all they do is build stuff for Tyson's and all of that. But I had no clue. I could design you a hospital, but don't ask me to do a hog finishing barn. So anyway, I went over to the lumberyard, learned how to do that, and from 67 to 71, I taught architectural design, as well as we added another section, grew another thing, and then I was kind of lead teacher over architectural drawing. And then they had a statewide drafting advisory committee for the vocational / now community college, all those programs that had architectural, and I served on that committee. I get a phone call in July or August of 71 from a director said, we're starting 2 new vocational programs in western Minneapolis called Hennepin Technical Centers. Now it's Hennepin Technical Colleges. They're competency-based versus just routine curriculum credits. And we'd like you to come and set up those programs for us. So I left right in the middle of the school year. I left November 1st of 1971. And they said, and by the way, on January 3rd, you'll start your first class. Now, we had an advisory committee. We had started putting curriculum together. They had started recruiting. Boeing Aircraft was designing the supersonics at that time, and it got shut down because of legislature. So the purchasing guy had bought literally train car loads of drafting tables. You know, drafting tables are the things prior to CAD and parallel rules, all that stuff. And so we had to build we were in a rental space. The schools weren't done yet. But all this time, I'm sharing this because it's leading into, all these things lead into legacy things to where we are today. And you all have it. Why am I up here today? Because I think I want all of you to be conscious of every experience, good, bad, and ugly, that you go through. If you go through it with your glass half and 2/3 full, you're going to get through it a lot better in life and say, it is not what's happening to me, is what am I learning from this? What am I gaining by going through this? Suffering's not new in the world, and it's not going to end anytime soon that I've heard of. So anyway, in 71, then I joined Hennepin Technical College, and now it has Hennepin Technical Centers. And so I taught architectural in a warehouse for the first year. When the guy that was mechanical drafting started, to divide our classroom, we went to the lumberyard, bought 6-8 doors like those, put hinges on them, serpentined it between our sets of drawing tables, and I taught on one side and he taught on the other, and this will really get you. And we put cork board up on there to pin up notes. And so we had that going, and we were recruiting more students at the same time. Now the district was helping with that, but we were doing that. So from 71 to 72, early 73, we went from there, moved into the South Campus in the western suburbs of Minneapolis. I was there and they said, we'd like you to become the department chairman for graphics. I said, well, I've been teaching architectural. Well, you do that well, but we want you to, I kept getting back into management somehow. So anyway, we had already bought a home in Shakopee, southern suburbs of the cities. The commute would be to Brooklyn Park, one of the farthermost suburbs of the Twin Cities. So anyway, I became department chairman of graphic communications. And for those of you that are from the vocational or in community college, architectural drafting, mechanical drafting, commercial art, commercial photography, 5 sections of graphics, printing, color separation, TV production, all of that was in our, and we did all the graphics for the school. Any signage, any brochures, anything like that, we did all that for that department. So from 73 to 79, I was department chairman. And candidly, no offense, I have 7 teachers in my family. They recruited people that were well known, like the chef's food service programs. They hired 2, the superintendent wanted to make a name for the school right off the bat. So he hired Olympic culinary experts that won culinary election. That didn't mean they'd be good teachers necessarily. So after about 5 years or 6 years of being department chairman, I said to Karen, I got to do something different. I'm having more challenges with the teachers than I was with the students. And I've been a teacher, and I am a teacher, and I have 7 in my family right now that are teachers. But in that case, most of these had come out of industry, but had never really been groomed to be teachers. So one of my advisory members, I'd said something to him. He said, I need a marketing director for our architectural firm. Would you like to come to work for us? So in 1979, June of 79, I joined Hills Gilbertson, which became Centrum Architects. And I went throughout the whole I went into about 5 or 6 states. Primarily, they were healthcare architects, marketing and doing that. We all make funny decisions sometimes. That Proverbs 16:9, and this is a knowledge verse. In our hearts, a person plans their course, but the Lord determines our steps. And sometimes we think we're in charge, and I thought I was in charge. One of the guys in my Saratoga club says, well, I'm starting this golf club company, and I need a general manager for the Dolphin. Now, the architectural side had slowed down just because of depression and that kind of thing. And I didn't know what it was going to be. And I had 2 daughters in college at that point, and we don't always make wise decisions. And I said, run a golf club company? That'd be cool. So I went to work for MGM Golf, Minnesota Golf Manufacturing, and we created the Mass Golf Club, modular adjustable swing weight system. Now those clubs are what people are buying now. This was in the 80s, where if you look at any of them, whether it's Callaway or any of the majors, they all have these little screws and things on them. Now you can adjust the weight of the swing weight of the club, without, as long as you don't do it during the course of, I even had